Well, on to another big story, especially as it pertains to the SABC. Communications Minister Nomvula Mokonyane has expressed strong opposition to the possible retrenchments at the SABC. In a statement, Mokonyane says that she appreciates the urgent need to curtail costs at the SABC, but says that retrenchment is not the only solution. And joining us on the line now is Communication Minister's spokesperson, Mlimandlela Ndamase. Mr. Ndamase, thanks so much for speaking to us here on The Full View.
Good evening, Sakina, and good evening to your viewership.
Mr. Ndamase, let's just first establish, in what capacity is the Minister expressing this concern?
Well, she only has one capacity, and that is the Minister of Communications and also the shareholder representative on behalf of the government of South Africa.
So we heard the ANC through its Secretary General, Mr. Isma Khashule, also coming out and expressing their opposition to the impending retrenchments at the SABC. And the board was very clear, citing the Broadcasting Act as number 13, subsection 11, that gives them the authority to deal with the issues regarding the SABC. So what is the Minister hoping to achieve through this particular statement?
Well, I think we must note the comments of the SG of the ANC and would not want to venture into trying to explain or clarify whatever his remarks were. But from where the Minister sits, obviously as the Minister of Communications, she is the shareholder representative on the SABC on behalf of the government of South Africa and by implication the people of South Africa. And obviously, as we have always participated in processes within the SABC, respecting the laws that govern the SABC, including the Broadcasting Act that was cited by the board, we also appreciated the cooperation and the partnership in the relationship that exists between the shareholder, which is the government, and the SABC as an entity which has a board. And what the Minister is saying in her statement is that the SABC is a national asset, and therefore it being a national asset, there is interest across the board, not only from government, but from civil society, the general public in our country, and obviously perhaps political parties as well to some extent, on what it is that happens at the SABC and how the SABC functions. And as part of that responsibility that she carries as a member of the executive entrusted with oversight over the SABC, she is of the view that the turnaround plan that she was provided by the board is a turnaround plan that we can engage on further to be able to achieve the objectives of the board of being able to turn around the SABC to financial sustainability. However, where there is difference is whether or not the retrenchment plan, as pronounced in the media and other places, is our foremost and only solution to the problems. And where she is sitting, she is not satisfied and therefore has also expressed to the board, providing advice and the support that she has continued to provide, that we must look at a holistic turnaround plan for the SABC that does not only identify retrenchment, but must also look at other inefficiencies within the system at the SABC and also explore other revenue-enhancing mechanisms that can be put in place to ensure that we create a financially sustainable SABC of the future.
Mr. Ndamase, there have been several engagements between the Minister and the board regarding this particular matter. And in that statement, the Minister raises a concern about what she deems odd behavior by the SABC board, saying that the board has ignored her advice. How so?
Well, the Minister has communicated her views to the board in as far as some of the proposals that have come through with regards to the turnaround plan. Part of those views were to be, as announced 2 weeks back, was the appointment of a technical task team that is supposed to support the SABC with its turnaround plan, including the Department of Communications and the National Treasury, because one of the things that your viewers should also remember, Sakin, it cannot only just be sufficient for the SABC to call on the Minister when they are looking for support for financial guarantees and for investments of resources from Treasury, but when they decide on their strategic approach and outlook and a turnaround plan, want to screen independence, and hence the Minister is of interest to say on behalf of the government, it would be in our interest to ensure that whatever the turnaround plan is agreed by the board, which is the responsibility of the board. However, whatever input and advice that is provided should be taken into consideration, and where there are differences, those should be expressed to the minister so that she may be able to understand and weigh and be able to continue an engagement that ultimately will ensure that we're creating an SABC that will be able to continue benefiting South Africans and serving the South African public at large.
Mr. Ndamase, the statement is quite emphatic in that it states that the minister's advice has been ignored altogether. So, which is why I was asking, how so? Which bits of advice were totally ignored by the board?
Well, the minister has been clear even in the statement that, one, she feels that the turnaround plan that was submitted by the SABC is not emphatic and clear enough as far as if we are going to the route of retrenchments, where are we going to retrench? Which skills are we going to be putting aside? How much are we going to gain or save in terms of the cost-driving activities of the SABC? She has concerns around the revenue enhancement models that have been presented and whether or not those will be sustainable and can be met by the SABC in the current environment. And so part of her advice has been, let us be able to engage so that we can bring together a holistic plan. But from what we have seen, there has been an attempt to pursue only one direction that relates to the proposed retrenchments, as opposed to all the other interventions that are announced in the turnaround plan and for which the minister had provided comment.
Mr. Ndamase, just a final question. Is the minister's view that there should be any retrenchments, no retrenchments, or how does she see this playing out?
The minister's view is that we must present a turnaround plan of the SABC that takes retrenchment as the final resort once it has considered all the financial cost drivers within the SABC, identified areas where we can improve revenue enhancement, identified areas where we can do away with inefficiencies, and identified areas where we can be able to increase the funding and the revenue base that comes into the SABC before we can even start talking and considering retrenchment. Obviously, we appreciate that the SABC is in a very precarious financial situation, and we must be able to arrest it so that we can create it into a sustainable business. But in doing so, we must look at all the factors that are necessary and not just pinpoint and target one and create it as an all and be all solution.
Well, thank you so much. That was spokesperson for the Communications Minister, Mlimandlela Ndamase.